Hi guys, Ruth here from Belting Gifts and welcome to the crafting Chez, or in today's case, the crafting garage. A cold garage. I've been here for about 40 minutes so far, just tidying this bit because I'm creative and so very messy. Or as my mum would say, very messy. So yes, I've cleared a bit of space. I've had to turn the camera this way so that you can't see the bit I haven't tidied, which is everything else. This is pretty much a storeroom for all my extra stock for the shop, so there's lots and lots of bags. Yes, anyway, lockdown, so we are as a nation at the moment pretty much housebound. I thought you guys might need a little bit of stabbing to get it out of your system because we are just naturally social beings and we like to be around people, and when you can't be around people it can be frustrating, but it is for the greater good, so we're rolling with it. What I thought instead is I would show you how to needle felt something Christmassy, because Christmas is almost upon us and it's always nice to make something festive for the tree. So I'm going to be showing you today how to make a needle felted reindeer, only a little one, like I refer to as felted friends. These are the tiny little creatures that you can make out of the needle felted balls that I've showed you how to do before. So this is what we're going to make, and here is a picture of the felted balls because I can add one. There's a link to that just down in the description, so if you haven't made a felted ball before, just go down to that link. I'll take you step by step through that. There's also a link down there in the description for that show you how to turn what you're going to make today into something that you can hang on your Christmas tree. I'm not going to show you how to do that today, mainly because I forgot to bring anything with me to hang them with. Now these are really quick, simple and easy-ish. If you don't get it first time, keep going. As I always say when I'm doing my workshops, if it doesn't look how you want it to look, you're not finished yet. Brilliant thing about needle felting, if you don't like what you've done, one, you can tell people it's supposed to look like that. They'll never know. Two, just keep going until it looks how you want it to look. Just be aware that sometimes things do go awry and that's perfectly normal. Don't worry about it. We're not going for perfection here, we're going for messy and creative. Anyway, I'm going to swap the cameras so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, we're all set. So I've set up my camera down here so you can see what materials I'm going to be using. I have got some little black beads here. I think these are 3mm, 2mm, 3mm. Basically just little black beads that I'm going to be using for the eyes. I'm keeping these in just a little plastic tub just because I'm working on a bit of an incline and I don't want them to roll away. I've also got a needle and thread which I'll be using. It's quite a fine needle, it needs to go through the beads. This will be used for basically attaching the eyes. So I'm going to put that to the side. Scissors, because I usually need scissors and never have them handy, so I've got those just in case. I think I'm going to need those in a minute for cutting this little guy, which is a pipe cleaner. So this is a, I don't know how long this is, what, 10 centimetre maybe, something like that, pipe cleaner that I'm going to be using for the antlers. And then I've got a felting needle. I think this is more of a medium needle. I've got it in my red handle, which means it should be a thick one, but I have been using this previously and found that this felting needle actually, yeah, it's more of a medium, maybe even a fine. It goes quite easily into the work I'm doing. I have got some more needles just in case. I've got finger protectors because you never know when you're going to stab yourself when you're felting. Now these are going to go onto your non-dominant hand. So if you're left-handed, they go on your right hand. Well, I'm right-handed, so these are going on my left. And these go basically on the hand that is going to be holding your work. The reason they do this is because when you're stabbing away with your felting needle, getting out all that frustration about being in lockdown, there's a chance that you will lose concentration and stab yourself. In fact, you're probably not a proper felter until you've stabbed yourself. It hurts, it bleeds just for a moment, but still. So yeah, finger protectors if you're going to be doing some vicious stabbing. I should pop those there. I've got some fibre, so I haven't got any carded fibre in red. I've just got this red tops, basically roving. So you can see here it's quite a long staple. If you take your fingers and just pull apart like this, you'll see that this is the natural length of the fibres. That's quite long. If you're working with fibre that's quite long for felting and you want to get a nice smooth finish, the trick is to mess it up as much as possible. So I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to pull off a little bit more. This is going to be for the nose. I'm doing a Rudolph because I can. So yeah, just going to mess it up, get it as fluffy as possible, and you'll find strangely that the messier the fibre is now, the smoother it's going to be when you felt it. So let's give that a real mess, and then I'm just going to rub it between my hands. Now my fingers are really dry at the moment, probably due to being in a cold garage. Just rub it together, and this is just starting that felting process. So what you're doing is you're just getting those fibres closer together and just pushing them until they form a bit of a ball. I'm going to keep that for later. That's going to be the nose. Now I've got some here fibre, which is, this is carded, and if you pull it apart you'll see it's quite a short staple, which is fibre length, and it's quite crimped, so it's got lots of waviness to it, and it's also got little bits in it there. So this is more like a traditional hand carded fleece. This stuff is perfect for doing 3D felting, and that's because it's already got a lot of, let's say, crimp to it. It's also short fibres, so it's going to be coming together quite nicely, quite smoothly, which is what we want. It's also got a few bits of grass and things in, so I'm just going to pull those out. So I'm putting my finger protectors on. What I'm going to do is take my fibre, I'm just going to pull it apart a bit, just so it's a bit more messy. There we go. I probably don't need all of it. There we go. So when you're felting, it's very much a case of less is more. You can always add more fibre later, but it's a real pain in the neck to get rid of it if you've put too much in. So I'm going to start off with about this much. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of pinching it together so that it's starting to form kind of a ball shape to start off with, and then I'm just going to stab into these bits that are sticking out. Make sure you keep your extra fingers just out the way, because the temptation is to just grab it in your palm, and when you stab through you get your fingers underneath. We don't want to do that. So normally I would be working on a felting pad. I forgot to bring one home with me, so I'm just going to be working here and just make sure that I don't stab all the way through to the surface I'm working on. So what I'm doing is I'm catching these bits that are sticking out more than others, and I'm felting them into place, and my hand that's holding is just lightly holding the fibres. You don't want to hold too tightly. If you squeeze too much, what you'll find is you'll end up with certain areas that get felted faster than others, and it just gives you an uneven shape, and you don't want that. You want a nice round ball shape. We don't want to overfelt this too soon, because what we're going to be doing next is shaping it into a dome. So just take it slow and just get these bits that are sticking out more than others. Now this is probably going to take me a while because my needle is quite thin, so it's not catching the fibres as well as I would like. It's going to take a lot of stabbing. I could swap up to another needle, but I think I've dropped it on the floor, so I'm going to fast forward this instead. Now what I'm actually doing is working over the surface and aiming the needle into the centre of the ball. So in my mind I've got an image of a ball, and the needle is always pointing towards that central point as I stab. The best way to do it is to rotate your ball of fibre as you work, and that way you can always stab from the same direction. You don't have to worry too much about changing the angle of your needle, just change the angle of your work instead. But the point of the needle is always aiming towards that central point. When you're rotating, always be sure as well to rotate on all the different angles. It's very easy to just keep working round and round just on one angle, so you're going round in one direction. And what we really want to do is stab in all the directions, so don't forget the top and bottom if you're doing just the sides at the minute. Now if you want to take a minute and just have a look at the whole shape of it, you'll see that there are certain areas like here that are sticking out more than others. Aim for those bits on your next round of stabbing. And whilst you're forming the ball, make sure that you stab quite deeply. You want to get to the centre of the ball. It's quite easy to just stab the surface to get that round shape, but you'll find if you do that, you'll end up with a really well felted surface, but inside will still be really loose, and that can cause problems later when we're shaping. We want to get it nice and evenly felted throughout. So just keep practicing, aim for that centre of the ball. Try not to go too far through, because you can end up stabbing out the other side, which can just affect the shape as well. So just keep in mind you want to go for just kind of halfway into the ball. Okay, so that started to come together. It's still really squishy, so if you just see me squeezing that there, my fingers can meet in the centre. It's a very squishy ball. There's a lot of felting left to do, and we're going to leave it there because we want to use that squishiness to create the shape we want. If we went too far and if we did a really firm ball at this point, we wouldn't have that extra give really to shape it into how we want it. So for the shape we're going to make a dome. So we want that kind of rounded shape at the top, flat shape at the bottom. The way to do that is choose part that you want to be the base of your shape, and what we're going to do is we're going to stab down in a circle. Now I'm going to go over this until it's very visible. So I'm going to keep going round. Now I'm not going right to the edge of the ball because we don't want it to be quite that wide. So if you can see that circle, let me rotate it a little bit so you can see that circle that I've created. That is going to be the diameter of the base of our creation. So there's quite a lot of felting to go in to get to that shape, but that's going to be it for now. So this bit in the centre of the circle I've just created, we need to flatten this. So what I'm going to do that is to create a flat surface, you stab at a 90-degree angle to what you want to create. So if I do it from the side, you can see here, that is where I want my flat piece to be. So I'm going to stab at a 90-degree angle into that and just evenly over that surface until it flattens in. Now I'm not stabbing too deeply here. If you stab too deeply, you might find that you end up concaving it and your base will go in. We don't want to do that. We just want to stab just enough to bring it down so that it's starting to be flat. Now do this quite slowly. Aim just for the sections that are sticking up a little bit more than others. Go, just little stabs. We're not going too deep. We're not changing the shape. We're just flattening it here. So there we go. See, that's quite flat now. Don't worry about these side bits that seem to be higher. We're going to be working our way around the outside now to bring everything in, and that will smooth those out. So what we're going to do is just turn it. Now I like to stab from the right hand side towards the left hand side because I'm right handed. This is most comfortable for me, so what I'm going to do is have the base facing me, and I'm just going to stab along here just in little lines and then rotate, and this time we're only rotating it in this dimension, so I'm rotating it right to left, yeah. So we're just going to do a little bit of stabbing just to bring everything in a little bit, and then we're going to rotate. So if I do it from the side, you can see it a bit better. I'm just doing kind of lines of it. Don't worry at this stage about it being too neat because we're going to be going over it round and round. Bring it in gradually. So I'm not stabbing too deeply and too violently. Take it slow. One of the crazy things about felting is that sometimes you'll find that you actually felt better and faster if you do it slower. I think it's because these little notches in the needle here, they catch the fibres. If you go too fast, you just miss them. So take it slow and see how that's really pushing in because I'm doing it slowly. That's what we want. And this is also really good for like self-care and things as well, because you're focusing your energy and your attention on just one thing. It's very much like mindfulness meditation. You're focusing everything into just one point, one stab of the needle. And this is a great way when things are going crazy and your mind's all over the place, just to really get that attention back into this one point, this one moment in time. Because sometimes we can just, with everything going on, your mind is going 1,000 miles a minute and you're thinking of a billion different things and different outcomes, different things that can be happening or going wrong. just take a minute, just take a few minutes and just focus on just being here and just the sensation of this needle going into your felt, just the sound of it. I'm not sure if you can hear this. I'm going to just pop the microphone just down here. I'm not sure if you've got that, but that's the sound of the needle catching the fibres. So you can actually tell how well you're felting by the sound of the felting. When you get that noise there where you hear it catching the fibres, that is the sound of your needle actually connecting. If your needle was too fine, you wouldn't get the sound to that extent. It would be a lot quieter and not as intense, and that way you can tell by just the sound that your felting is working. Okay, so I've done one complete rotation. I'm going to do a few more yet, but you can start to see the shape. That's going to be the base, and you've got your rounded top here. Now find that it's starting to look a bit like a mushroom. It's coming out a bit here at the side. Don't worry, we're going to catch that on the next go round. So I'm just going to do exactly the same, and then I'll come back to you once that is done. Now I probably should have mentioned this before, but with the dome, it's different to felting the ball. Now with the ball, we were aiming for one central point right in the centre of the ball, and that was where the needle end, the point was always just pointing. When you're making the dome, it's slightly different because you have to imagine that you've got a line going right through the centre of your dome from the base all the way to kind of about here. Now that line there is what we're aiming for with the needle. It's like the core. So we're always aiming the point of the needle towards the core of the dome, and that finishes about here. The reason it finishes is because we want to get that curve back, so we're going to have to aim the needle towards the top of that line, if that makes sense. So the point of the needle, it's almost like you've got, this is still a ball, and we're aiming for the centre, but from all angles. So if you see that from the side, the needle is changing direction, so when it's at the top it's pointing downwards towards the base. As you work down the side, the angle changes so that you're constantly keeping that curved shape. Okay, so have a look at your shape again. You'll notice some bits are more curved than others. This time round we're going to kind of aim more to get the shape. So to do that, we're going to look at it. Any bits that are sticking out more than others, we're just going to aim for those, take it slow, and we're stabbing slowly and close together at this point, and that gives you a smoother finish. See how that section I'm stabbing is going right in? So that's just because I'm stabbing slowly and close together. We're going to go over the whole surface and bring it all in, and we want to do this evenly. We want to get a nice, even, smooth finish. So don't focus too much on any one section. You need to keep moving, keep going over, again taking it slow, but really looking at that overall finish and shape, and just making sure that you're getting any bits that are sticking up there more than others. You want to change your angles occasionally as well, just so you can look from different angles at different bits that might need doing. If you get a section a bit like this that's got a little bit of a valley, as I refer to it, it's just kind of like a, if you can see that, just up there. See? What we're going to do is just stab to either side of that valley that's there. So we'll stab above and below it, but not in it. And what we're doing there is we're just bringing down the fibre to the same level. Okay, so you can kind of see the dome shape now. What we do have though is this concave section here now at the base. Now the way to fix this is to work right on the edge, straight down, as you're doing here, and just work your way down and round this edge here, again straight down, because this is, we want flat, so at a 90-degree angle. work all the way round. Now this does push it out this way, so can you see that where it's come out? There we go, it's come out this way. We don't want that. So working at effectively a 90-degree angle again, we're just going to stab down but rotate as we do, because we want to keep this nice curve. Do this lightly, you don't want to overdo it. And you're working right on the edge here, so can you see, if I do it that way, right on the edge. And the closer to the edge you get on both sides, the pointier, the more precise this edge is going to be. Now one of the things you'll find about needle felting as well is that it's a bit like, have you ever worn Spanx? Like those support pants that push everything in? You find with those, when you push everything in one place, it kind of comes out at a different place. So you end up with ripples where you didn't have ripples before. Same with felting. So because I'm pushing the fibre in here and here, you'll find that you're ending up with a bit more of a curve here. Again, don't worry. The trick is to do this bit by bit. So we'll work round here first, then we'll do the base again, then we'll go over the whole shape. And we're just gradually easing the shape in, bringing it into the finished shape that we want. It takes time because you have to do it gradually, but this is time out for you. This is time when you can be doing something just for you. And it's productive too, because you're making something that can go onto the Christmas tree, or can be a gift, or can go onto a parcel. You're making something. So this is you time that is valuable, and you're making something as well. So you'll have something to show for it. So don't worry if this takes a while. If you find that you don't have the time to do it all in one go, then just take 10 minutes when you've got them. Just have a go when you can. It's a great thing about needle felting too, is that it's small. Or some of the things can be small, some things can be big, but in this case it's something small, something portable. You can put it in your handbag, you can take it wherever you go. You can do this on the bus even, if you can go on the bus at the moment. Probably not safe to, but yeah, whilst you're at home, this is perfect to have just hanging around and just ready to go when you are. So I've brought these sides in, the bottom concaving a bit again here, so we're just going to go over it. So each time you do this, each time you go over a particular area, it becomes denser and just more firmly felted, and this gives you a nice solid base that you're working from for adding your details, and it gives you that control that you need just to get that perfect finish that you want, or imperfect in my case. Okay, so we're starting to get a really nice smooth base and sharp edge there. The rest of it is still quite squishy, so I'm going to take some time, go over the whole thing and just keep repeating what I've been doing until I've got a much denser dome to work with. Now the reason I want it quite dense is because we're going to be adding some details to it. We're going to be adding a couple of cheeks, we're going to be adding a nose, we're going to be adding some antlers, so you want it to be reasonably firm. It's just up to you how you prefer it, but I think personally for me what I want is something a lot smaller and a lot denser. So if you see me squeezing now, it's still, I can't touch my fingers together anymore because it's denser than it was when it was a ball, but it's still quite squidgy. So I'm going to spend probably another 20 minutes or so felting this until it's how I want it. So I shall just fast forward that and see you in 20 minutes. Okay, just getting rid of some of the bits that have come off whilst I've been felting. There is my dome, and if I give it a squish, it's a lot firmer now than it was before. Now you want a reasonable amount of firmness to it because we're going to be adding sections to it next. So should have some leftover fibre. I've got some here from when we were making the initial shape, so make sure you've got some left over. Hopefully you haven't been felting along and run out of fibre, because that would be totally my fault. Okay, we need some of this, and we need our red as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a bit to be the front, it's pretty much even, so it doesn't matter too much which way is front and which is back. I'm just going to choose a random place. I'm going to take my wodge there, my little ball of red fibre, and I'm going to place it towards the top, so I would say probably the top half, and I'm just going to give it a couple of stabs right in the centre. Now this isn't to shape it, this is just to fix it in place. And what we're going to do now is start working around the outside edge. Imagine this is a ball, and what I want to do is I want to catch the fibres just here, just on the edge, and I want to stab them towards the centre, so towards where I stabbed originally, down there. That's where the point of my needle is, but it's angled, so I'm trying to see which way is the best, but it's, yeah, it's at that sort of angle. So I'm stabbing towards that central point around the edge, just actually catching that red. And I'm going to work my way around and just rotate him as I go. And you want to keep catching the fibre, and you'll see it's actually being pulled in as I go. And I'm pushing it down and into the body, always aiming towards that central point, and that will give us a nice rounded shape. Now we're working really close here to the body to start off with, just catching, can you see that getting pulled in? And we're working our way around, and we're just catching a little bit higher up on the felt fibre here as we go. And what should happen, because we keep going around in a circle and we're just catching the edge, as it gets pulled tighter and tighter, it creates this domed, rounded effect to the fibre that's left. So we're going to keep working our way around, just catching just a few fibres a little bit higher up each time, but stabbing it into the same place. And what we're doing is we're just tucking it down and under. Now if you wanted to leave him with quite a big nose, we could probably stop here, but I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller. So I'm going to keep working around, just keep catching those edges there and stabbing them into the body. Have a look from different angles as well, so it's quite long here, just need to catch some of this and tuck it down and under. What we want is just kind of a nice roundish shape. And this is where us rolling the fibres together and messing them up really helps, because they're going from different directions now, these fibres, so when we're stabbing they're pulling in different ways. If we didn't and they were all in one length, you'd end up with lots of those valleys where the fibres aren't quite covering each other and connecting. So I'm just going to do a couple more there. So there we've got, it's quite squidgy nose, but it doesn't matter, he's not going to be handled, he's going to be going either on a present or as a present or on the tree. So what I want to do as well is some little cheeks. Why not? We can. So I'm going to take a piece of fibre. I want to get 2 of our brown leftover fibre. We want them to be about the same. So I'm just going to pull these bits apart and then divvy them up. So we've got about the same amount in each. It's easier to do this now and kind of get them generally the same than it is to try and work out how much you put in once you'd felted it down. So I'd say they're kind of ish about the same. So I'm going to put one here just to be safe, and the other one I'm going to put right up against that nose. And again, just going to just start by rolling it together, just start that felting process. And this also helps because it means we don't have as many flyaway fibres once we start felting in. So I'm just going to lay that right next to the nose. I'm just going to stab a couple of times just in the centre, just to hold it in place. Then we're going to start catching the fibre, and we're going to do exactly the same as we did with the nose. We're going to catch it and we're just going to work our way around in a circle and going right up against the nose. We don't want to catch the nose, we don't want to stab into the bit we've already stabbed, but we want to get quite close. So if you just use your needle and just push it down so it's the flat of it is between the two, and then pull it back slightly and stab, catching those edges. Now because the fibres for this carded fibre is slightly shorter, you might need to stab a bit more over the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is just stab, just catch these bits at the side, because I want the sides to be a little bit lower, keep some of the height here. So I'm going to stab over the whole thing because it doesn't need to be quite this big for the cheek. And remember, it's just like adding another ball or a dome. Imagine the central point in the middle, so your needles, to keep that rounded shape, is pointing towards that central point-ish. You don't need to be quite as precise with this bit. And just stab all over. Again, vary your direction. Don't stab too deeply. We don't want to flatten it. If you stab quite strongly and deeply, you'll flatten the whole thing. I'm just doing it quite lightly and quite quickly because we don't need to change the shape so much. We just want to start felting that surface and getting everything nice and smooth. Now you might see a join where your cheek joins the side of the face. If so, what you can do is just grab a little bit of your leftover fibre and you can just lay it over that join and just really lightly just stab over the whole thing, just to fill out that bit where the two pieces join. Now you might notice I'm using my needle at a bit of a lower angle, and what this does is it uses more of the edge of the needle to catch the loose fibres and just to tuck them under. If I stab down, I'm just making those holes, and you can kind of see the little holes sometimes where the needle's been. But if you use your needle at a bit of an angle, what you're doing is you're pushing your hole sideways and under, so from a different angle you might see it, but from looking straight on you can't. So it's a good way to kind of hide needle holes and the marks from where you've been stabbing, and also to catch more of your fibres, just to smooth it out once you want a nice finish. So let's just go there. So we've got a little cheek there. If you want to judge it up, you want to change the shape just a little bit, do that now. So quite happy with that. I'm going to try and do the same again on the other side. So again, pop your fibre on. A few stabs just in the centre just to get it to stay in place, and then work your way around. And we want to try and get them in line, so your outer edge, try and match it up to what you did before, the sides of the circle, the shape of it. Now I didn't ball this up quite as well for this cheek, so you'll find it starting to split. If that's the case and you've done the same and you're finding that your fiber's not going together in smoothly, don't worry, really lightly stab inwards. So where your valley's here, I'm going to stab slightly inwards that way and slightly inwards that way, and that's just to kind of link those fibres really lightly on the surface before we start shaping it properly. Okay, so adding the cheeks has just pushed out some of the fibre down here, more ripples. So I'm just going to be stabbing those back into place. Okay, so he's going to need some antlers and some eyes. Now I like to always put the eyes on last because I always think that once they've got their eyes they can feel pain. So we don't want that. What we want to do is add the antlers first. Now I've got my pipe cleaner here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half, and using my scissors, glad I brought them now, I'm going to cut that. Then I'm going to take one of the halves, I'm going to fold that in half, and we're going to cut that. Okay, so we've got 2/4 and a half. What we're going to do, take my finger protectors off, leave just a small section, about a centimetre, on one end, and we're going to take our little quarter and we're going to wrap it round really tightly. We want it to stay put, and then we're just going to curve the ends like so, which gives us kind of like a trident effect. I'm going to do that on the other side as well. So again, place the middle over, tight twist, curve them. These are going to be our antlers. Okay, so I'm going to place them, actually in the middle, just put your thumb in the middle, just fold the two ends up. There we go. We're going to place these on the top of his head, and we're going to take a piece of our leftover brown fibre. What we're going to do is place that over the top of them, want them as so, just sticking up. And what we're going to do with our finger protectors back on, we're going to stab to either side of the pipe cleaner. Now, be really careful with this. You do not want to stab the pipe cleaner, because the pipe cleaner, because it's got a metal core, if your needle hits it at the wrong angle, it can break your needle, and we don't want to break our needle. So we're just going to stab just carefully on one side of the pipe cleaner. Take it slow. It's easier to control where you're stabbing that way. Once you've got it just attached a little bit on one side, we're going to turn it round and we're going to stab the other side and just catch that fibre. Now this is one place where the shorter fibres aren't as handy, just because if you've got a long fibre you can stab it on one side and then stab it on the other side and it will hold it in place. This, because it's such short fibres, you need to get quite a reasonable amount over the top of your pipe cleaner just to make sure you get a nice firm secure hold. So once you've stabbed on either side a couple of times, you'll find you'll end up with a little bit of a, you see that there, a little bit of a extra bulgy bit there and 2 bits of loose fibres. Now we're going to get rid of the loose fibres first and just really secure them, so spread them out a little bit and we're just going to stab over and just try and keep that shape of the dome. We want to keep the dome shape, so little stabs, not too hard. Keep pointing the point of your needle, the end of your needle needs to be going towards that central core that we talked about before, or that central point if you're keeping your dome shape. So change the angle of your needle if you need to, rotate him. We just want to keep that nice curved shape that we've created. And again, if you want to, you can use quite a low angle coming away from the pipe cleaners, so stabbing downwards there, if I go, sticking quite close to the surface just to catch those loose fibres and just tuck them under. Helps give you that smooth finish. Okay, then we're going to do the same on the front. Now the reason we're doing this is because what we want to do is secure the ends before we start messing about in the middle. If you did the middle first, what you would find is that the ends got drawn, the ends get drawn up and you can end up felting everything into one spot, and you end up with like a bulgy bit and everything getting pushed in and it's not secure. Whereas this way we're stretching out those fibres over that pipe cleaner and it should be nice and secure once we're finished. We've still got our lumpy bit here. We're going to really carefully just go over this nice and slow. We don't want to catch that pipe cleaner. It's definitely in there somewhere, so just take it slow around the edges. And where you get this bit here where the fibres have drawn up along the pipe cleaner, just with your needle, just catch those and just draw them back in. Okay, so make sure your pipe cleaner's where you want it, because we're going to get this as tight as we can and we don't want it to be waggly. We don't want waggly antlers. There we go, so he is almost done. I'm going to need my needle and thread. So if you fold it double, but you only need about 30 centimetres. I'm going to come from down here and work my way up and come into the back of the head here. Now the reason I'm going so far away from where I want to pull the needle out is because that's where I want the tail of my thread to go. I don't want that to be showing. So pull that in and you just pull it in so it's just hidden inside, which gives you about so much tail inside of the body, so you don't get to see that later. And we're going to make little stitches. Now if you felted your reindeer firmly enough, you won't have a problem now, because what will happen is your fibre will catch fibres. If you've gone for quite a soft felted, it's quite squishy, make your stitches a bit bigger, just because you'll need to catch more fibre to stop it from coming undone. Now we're going to do just a few stitches there, just close together in the same place, just so that your thread is nice and secure. Now see me yanking on that? Nice and secure. What we do now is figure out where you want your eyes to be. Now I like them to be where the cheek and the nose meets, so you can almost see where they are now, little grooves. I'm going to come in from the back, again keeping to the same small stitch space there, because we have to cover this after, so make your stitches nice and small. And I'm going to bring the needle up just in that point there where the nose and cheek meets. You might need to squish them a little bit to get the needle through. Now if you want to, you can do a little stitch here. If you're going to be giving this to somebody who has children or pets, make sure that you do lots of nice firm stitches, just because we don't want these beads coming off and anybody choking. I do know that cats particularly are quite drawn to felted creations, so you can end up with them being attacked. So just make sure all beads and things are nicely secured. So we've got our thread there. I've just picked up one of my beads. I'm going to pop that onto the needle so it's on the thread, and I'm just going to do another couple of stitches. Okay, so there's one. I'm just going to go through the bead again. Make sure your bead's where you want it. I use my thumbnail to get it in place. Pull your thread nice and tight, and then I'm going to go out to the back again. Now it is tempting to go across and to sew your second bead in straight away. I like to go to the back so that I can get the right amount of tension, equal tension between the two beads. So, back, we want to get back to where we had our stitch before. Go, and then just pop your thumb over the bead, just give it a little tug just so it's nice and secure, and then I'm just going to do a little stitch over my previous stitches and then back to the front again. Oops. There we go. Try and get them even. Don't worry too much if they're not though, because the cute thing about these is they're all slightly different, and you will find that when you add the beads and everything, it really gives the expression to your little creatures. So there we go, just pop the other bead on. I'm going to do a little stitch. Go through the eye again. Now I forgot to do a stitch when I first came through, so I'm just going to do this 3 times just to make extra sure it's secure. Make sure it's in the right place, and then we're going to sew back to where we started. Now again, another couple of stitches. I mean, if I was doing this just for myself and it was just going in a display, I wouldn't sew the eyes on quite as firmly as this, just because I know that they wouldn't be touched and nobody's going to mess with them. But just in case, if you're giving it as a gift, or if you know for a fact you've got children or animals in the house, just make sure they're nice and secure. So I've done my extra stitches. I'm just going to bring the needle back down and come out somewhere in the body. Oops. Okay, I'm going to give that a little tug, and with the scissors we're going to cut as close to the body as we can so that the end is completely hidden inside now, and that just leaves us this little bit here where we did our stitches. Now we're going to take a little bit more of our leftover fibre, just a little patch as I like to call them, so a little piece here that's going to go just over the top. Put on our finger protectors again, and with this last bit what we're going to do is we're going to stab around the outside edge first. So I'm stabbing straight down, lightly, not going too deeply, because again we don't want to change the shape of him, and we're going to stab around the outside first. And the reason we do this is because if you just stab over the area in the centre here, if we did that first, all your fibres would get sucked in and you wouldn't cover. So just stab around your outside edge, make sure it's nice and secure first, so that when you stab over this central section here, what it's doing is it's just pulling against the bits we've already felted and it's covering it up nicely. Then I'm going to have a look at the overall shape. Anything that needs fixing, I can fix it now, but I'm reasonably happy with him actually. I think that's about right. And if you want to also, you can give him a bit of a belly patch using a lighter colour. Again, just mix it up, roll it into a bit of a ball, and pop it on his belly, and as you did before, just stab around the outside edge first just to get that domed shape. You can go for an oval, a circle, whatever shape you like. I'm going to go for a bit of a dome shape. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to rub over it with my thumb just to hide some of those little stab marks. There we go. There is our little Rudolph reindeer. Any questions, pop them down there in the comments section. If you've enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content like this, then be sure to click on the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you don't miss out on future videos. And I will be doing some more Christmassy ones, things that you can go on the tree, in the next couple of weeks. So I hope you enjoy and stay tuned and stay safe out there.